1942 Europe is bleeding and Hitler's forces are pushing deeper into the east. After failing to capture Moscow, a new plan was formed: strike south, seize the oil fields and bring the Soviet Union to its knees. And right in the middle of the map lies a city that, at first glance, seems meaningless. Not a capital, not a fortress, not even on the front line. But it has a name, and that's enough. Stalingrad. An industrial hub on the Volga River, a railway crossroads, and home to hundreds of thousands. But more importantly, a city bearing Stalin's name. That alone makes it an obsession. For one dictator, a challenge. For the other, a matter of pride. What began as part of a broader operation quickly turned into a brutal fight for every inch of rubble. The Luftwaffe leveled the city. The German 6th Army advanced street by street. But instead of victory came winter, a Soviet counterattack, and a trap that snapped shut around hundreds of thousands of men. This wasn't just a battle. It was hell among ruins. House by house, step by step, no mercy, no retreat, and above all, no way back. Hey, it's Duchos again, and today we're looking at how a name became a grave. Welcome to the story of the Battle of Stalingrad. Operation Fall Blau, Hitler heads south. After the failure outside Moscow in the winter of 1941-42, it was clear Blitzkrieg in the east had failed. But Hitler wasn't ready to give up. In the summer of 1942, he launched a new offensive, Operation Fall Blau. The goal was simple on paper: push south, seize the oil fields in the Caucasus, and cut Soviet supply lines along the Volga. At first, the city of Stalingrad wasn't even part of the plan, but once Hitler saw the name on the map, he made a decision. From a purely military standpoint, it was an unnecessary risk, but from a propaganda point of view, the perfect prize. To defeat Stalin in the city named after him, that was a dream. The German 6th Army, led by General Friedrich Paulus, was ordered to take the city. Behind them came tanks, infantry, and artillery. In August 1942, the nightmare began. First came the Air Force. The Luftwaffe reduced Stalingrad to rubble. Entire neighborhoods burned within days. Civilian casualties soared. The city turned into a fiery mess of brick, metal, and ash. But that very rubble soon became one of the key reasons for the German advance stalling. Streets of death. The Red Army digs in. The Germans expected the city to fall within days, maybe weeks. But Stalingrad refused to surrender. Instead of fleeing defenders, the 6th Army found ruins swarming with Soviet soldiers. And ironically, those ruins worked in their favor. Destroyed factories, crumbling apartments, basements, stairwells, all became deadly nests of resistance. Every building turned into a fortress, every street into a battlefield. The fight was for every meter. The Soviets adopted a brutal tactic: close quarters combat. Their soldiers stayed as close to the enemy as possible, making artillery and airstrikes almost useless. Who had the upper hand? No one. Germans would take a floor in the morning, Soviets would reclaim it by night, and the next day it would begin again. New Soviet units were ferried across the Volga under constant fire. Many were handed a rifle and told they'd get bullets once someone ahead of them fell. Some didn't even get that. Still, the Red Army bit down and never let go. The most famous example was Pavlov's house, a regular apartment block defended by just 4 men for 40 days. Legend says it killed more Germans than the entire French campaign. It was war at its most brutal. Wounded men lay in basements, snipers on rooftops, gunfire by day, screams by night. And between it all, frost, hunger, and desperation. Game changer, Operation Uranus. While the German Sixth Army was still trying to capture the final city districts, the Soviet High Command was preparing a counterstrike. In November 1942, the Red Army launched Operation Uranus, a name that sounded like an explosion. The goal wasn't to liberate Stalingrad from within, but to surround it from the outside. Two massive Soviet forces attacked from the north and south, targeting weaker Axis allies, Romanians and Italians, rather than the Germans themselves. And that's where the breakthrough came. Within days, Soviet tanks pushed through and met near the town of Kalach, west of Stalingrad. They encircled Paulus and the Sixth Army. 300,000 men were trapped. The Germans were stunned and worse, cut off. As the Soviets tightened the noose, Hitler made one of the war's worst decisions: no retreat. He believed the Luftwaffe could supply the Sixth Army by air, fuel, food, ammunition. But the reality was very different. Planes couldn't keep up, and the weather was catastrophic. The soldiers were becoming a ghost army, stranded in a ruined city with no food, no gear, and no chance. Frozen trap. The ring closes winter. 1942 arrived early and fierce. Temperatures plunged below freezing. Supplies dwindled. Luftwaffe planes couldn't deliver even a tenth of what the encircled army needed. Instead of warm clothing came orders to hold. Instead of hope came silence and fear. Soldiers ate horses, then dogs, then whatever frozen scraps they could find. Some cut open corpses just to reach a last can of food in a pocket. Surgeries were done without anesthesia. The wounded lay in snowbanks, breathing frost until they didn't. Though Paulus repeatedly requested permission to withdraw, Berlin's answer was always the same: stand and fight. Hitler refused to face defeat, even as his army slowly froze and starved in a ring of ice and artillery. The Soviets held the encirclement tight. German attempts to break through, like Operation Winterstorm, failed. No help came. Inside Stalingrad, soldiers lived hour by hour. The city meant to be a trophy had become a mass grave. Hundreds died daily, yet High Command insisted no surrender. And speaking of history, let me introduce a sponsor that feels like it stepped straight out of a medieval chronicle. It's called Wolflund, and if you're into fantasy, Celtic art, Viking jewelry, or just want a sword that's more than a wall decoration, this is the place for you. But it's more than just a store. Wolflund is the official partner for Kingdom Come: Deliverance 2. Yes, really. You can even get the legendary Invictus sword, the very one from the game, forged for the real world. I've partnered with Wolflund because they're not only passionate about quality craftsmanship, they also support creators like me, who bring history to life. So if you want to support them and support this channel, check out wolflund.com. And don't forget to use the code Duchos05 at checkout. You'll get 5% off and help keep the past alive. Thanks a lot. And now, let's dive back into history. End and disgrace. Paulus surrenders. By January 1943, the writing was on the wall. The German Sixth Army could not hold out. Supplies were gone. Morale was below zero, literally and figuratively. The Soviets launched Operation Ring, tightening their grip until German lines collapsed entirely. Stalingrad's streets fell silent, not because the war ended, but because there was no one left to fight. Soldiers died in basements, in frozen trenches among the ruins. Sometimes the dead lay beside the living for days. General Paulus received one final order from Hitler: die a hero or fight to the last man. Instead, on January 31st, 1943, Paulus surrendered, the first German field marshal to ever do so. Hitler was furious. A field marshal, he said, must never surrender. He should fall with honor. But Paulus chose survival. German units in the northern part of the city held out 2 more days, and then they too surrendered. Of the 300,000 men encircled, about 90,000 entered captivity. Only a few thousand ever returned home. Stalingrad became the greatest defeat of the German army, and its turning point. Turning point. What Stalingrad changed. The Battle of Stalingrad did not just end with one army's surrender. It marked the collapse of Germany's dream of victory in the East. Until then, the Nazi war machine was seen as invincible. After Stalingrad, no one thought that anymore, not even Hitler. Nazi propaganda tried to downplay the loss, but the truth was too big to hide. The entire city was lost, 300,000 men dead or captured, and on the map, a hole the Wehrmacht would never fill. The Soviets, on the other hand, gained newfound confidence. Stalingrad became a symbol of resistance, of revenge. From that point on, the Red Army pushed west, through Ukraine, through Poland, all the way to Berlin. Stalingrad also changed the way people saw the war. It was no longer a chess match of generals. It became a total war for survival, where rubble, cold, and sheer will made the difference. And in the end, it was Soviet will that prevailed. If someone ever asks you when World War II began to turn, don't hesitate. Stalingrad wasn't the end, but it was the beginning of the end. Conclusion. Stalingrad wasn't just a battle, it was a break in time. A place where the Nazi advance stopped, where the tide turned, where soldiers turned into shadows. What was meant to be a quick victory became slow agony, and that's why the world remembers this place. Not for the number of dead, though there were hundreds of thousands, not for strategy, but for what Stalingrad revealed about human nature. It showed how far people will go, for victory, for honor, or just to survive. It showed that cold, hunger, and ruins can be just as deadly as tanks and bombs, and that behind every general's decision stand thousands who have no choice. The Battle of Stalingrad broke the spine of German expansion. The Soviets took the initiative and never let it go. From the east came a pressure that would only end in Berlin, and for the first time, Nazi commanders felt fear, not just fear of defeat, but the knowledge that defeat was possible. Psychologically, Stalingrad was the first major blow to Hitler's cult of invincibility. Politically, it proved the Soviet Union would not fall, and humanly, it left behind a city of silence, wounds, and scars that will never fully heal. Stalingrad became a symbol, for some, of victory, for others, of catastrophe, and for all, a reminder that war is never just about land, it's about people, about how much a person can endure, and everything they might lose. Maybe that's why, when people hear the name Stalingrad today, they don't feel pride or glory, they feel a chill. Thanks for watching all the way through. If you liked the video, drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and feel free to share it. It really helps others who care about history too. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see next and if you enjoyed this one. Take care, and I'll catch you in the next video.